Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the PCS Spring Playoffs. My name is Asterix. I'm joined by Clement. It is a 2-0 start here from CFO. It has been a dominating series so far. If you're just joining us, you're hoping that J-Team have something else in the bank. We're going to remind you that we've got CDBC Bank and Caliber as our sponsors. Thank you to Riot Games, Carry Live, and Garena for the full league operation and production here that you see in front of you. And Clement, we're on the cusp. We're on match point now. J-Team have looked a little bit lost, and we've just been told that they've picked blue side, so not changing up here. A bit interesting considering that we said that maybe Driver, maybe the rest of J-Team need to change of pace.
I felt like Driver, after the shellacking he got from Russ, definitely needs a mental reset. He's been playing 2 games of weak side Gragas, and that's not a great way to start the game. And I would also want to add that the best way to take out CFO is actually to force them into a much later game posture by ganking Rest in the lane over and over again. This has been a very successful strategy. We have seen him just get terrible starts and kind of pull the Shy impersonation into that top side. So at the very least, if they are going blue side, I do want to see at least a Jace or a Kennen come out. Champions that when you gank can actually snowball the lanes themselves.
Yeah, again, like, there's been so much power from Rest individually in this series. It's nice to see. It is that other the Shy element. I feel like, you know, when it goes well, it goes really well. So a nice little touch here from CFO, considering that this time around, when we talked about the draft, we talked about the fact that, okay, CFO wanted to play slow. They wanted to play a slower early game. It was such an easy early game. Mission had priority in his lane in the Orianna versus Zoe matchup versus Uniboy.
Yep.
And as we just talked about, Rest destroyed Driver in the top lane, Nah versus Gragas. And even the bot side, Clement, didn't have enough of an advantage to really be like, oh, Lil V will take over. It was rough to watch. And in game 3, match point now, we have J-Team who decided that they wanted to be blue side again. I wonder what draft strategy you pull out in what could potentially be your final game.
Oh, we are seeing a switch up here. Lee Sin taking off the board. So I'm thinking about what is left open for the first pick right here. A couple of the ones that we have seen. Oh, Hecarim's already out as well. I do expect J-Team to actually shift mainly towards a late game strat. Another one of CFO's sort of weaker points is that they're not very coordinated in terms of 5v5s. They very often get caught out, and that's why CFO ran into so much trouble in the second half. So I do like this from J-Team. They're saying, okay, our tempo play against Mission and Gemini, probably not good enough. So we're just going to go for hyper late game. Jinx and Aphelios are both open, so they're guaranteed to have a hyper carry. And hopefully that means that they can pour more resources into Driver in the early game and give him a sort of a reset.
Yeah, we'll see. At the very least for CFO, I'm wondering if that actually gets locked. It's been hovered a couple of times here at the whim of Koala, but it is the Nautilus that last game played so well. Didn't get the MVP, but definitely a secondary MVP was worth giving. And as we look at CFO, I guess, Clement, when it's all going right for them, they just say, let's run it back.
Yeah, no problems here on CFO's side. The question really is what they deal with the shift in the mid lane with the Orianna. What are they going to go with? I feel like Mission might be going for even slower of a pick. The Azir, the Corki, the Victors are all playable in this meta, so we don't have a lack of control mages whatsoever. J-Team, on the other hand, is still going to try and... Yes, this is what I wanted to see. If you're going to blind pick for this man, at least give him something that he can play aggressively with. Bot lane's going to be pushing up for J-Team. Top lane is a lane that if you snowball can't get very far ahead. So I feel like J-Team finally in game 3 are on the right track in the matchup against CFO.
I wonder what we get from CFO's top lane in response though, because for Rest, Clement, he's played the Malphite before. And we know what Malphite can do to Jace. You know, things like the Gragas as well, a possibility. Top lane intrigues me because we get something that is strong in the wheelhouse, and right there, Rest with the Graves, his most played champion, to pull into Driver.
Yeah, this is interesting. We have seen Rest just pummel the lane in this specific matchup against the Jace, but so far I'm not a huge fan of CFO's composition. They are setting themselves up for a very short range comp that has to walk in versus Orianna and Xayah. That's always pretty difficult to do. So I think CFO right now, they're much more likely to just scrap the teamfight strategy altogether and go commit to a 4-1. I feel like they're going to be looking for something wave clearing mid, not trying to contest the range, but just trying to make sure that they can hold the wave themselves, while Rest does the split pushing. So you see J Team reading this as well and taking away the victor.
Okay, well, with that gone as well, let's see if mission gets channeled a little bit longer, a little bit more, if my English would make sense. Things like the Syndra Beam Bandol series, you just mentioned the Victor. I see the Ari already gone. Clement, what other direction? Because things like the Vex I noticed in the PCS haven't been looked at as much as maybe a region like the LPL. What do you run in?
I don't think they are going to go for the Vex. Pretty much a little too short range. They're going to go for the Zoe instead. That does leave up things like the Azir and Corki. I think both are playable in this spot. They're much weaker compared to the Orianna in the early phases of the game. But when it comes to late game and you're just looking for wave clear and damage, I feel both of them would be good picks. This would be very surprising if it gets locked in. I think it's much more of a Shun possibility rather than mid, though.
Okay, I was going to say, Clement, you're right. There are multiple possibilities, though. Funnily enough, Uniboy is the one who played it towards mid, so it'd be nice to see Mission, with how well he's been performing in lane, pull this out. Let's get the flexibility there, Clement. We'll have to see how it rounds out. For the time being, since you're really liking J-Team's comp, round me through what we're going to see. We get the Leona. How do you pivot jungle here? How do you complete this little package?
This comp is just strong front to bottom. It has great early game potential, and if you actually win the snowball, then late game, it's still pretty strong. So I think if you're looking at this composition, all you need is a jungler that can hold your lanes. Make sure that the top lane isn't going to fail that hard. I'm not a huge fan of Nocturne. I feel like Nocturne's impact comes in way too late. Poppy, however, does have that sort of hard crowd control potential earlier on, and this is one of those old Kongre picks that has been very strong. It also fits the comp nicely because they do have a sort of a poke element into it. And for Mission, this is interesting because I've said this many times on broadcast. I actually feel like Mission's Galio has been his weakest champion overall. He's very much a control mage. He's not much of a roamer. And I feel like the Galio has been incredibly hit or miss. He does not frontline well with this champion. So CFO coming up with an interesting strategy. They're doubling down on their melee, on the melee factor, and going for more of a catch pick comp, which I don't really think they have the crowd control to support.
I mean, it's a good point, right, as well, with the denial tools from J-Team. Let's kind of think about how Kongyue interacts with it, how Enso interacts, like the space that can be provided when J-Team can utilize their poke. You already kind of nailed down that you prefer J-Team's composition in this one, which is a nice piece of narrative, Clement, because J-Team this series, let's be fair, even though Game 2 draft was a lot better, it feels like we've been highlighting CFO a lot more. We have been drilling into J-Team about some of their drafts. In this third game, easy to operate. You talked about the early game snowball potential and how it can move into the late game quite successfully. Where this time around, you're saying that CFO look harder to operate and have a much more narrow angle.
I mean, they're playing a full 5-man catch comp into a Poppy. And that never ends up well. The steadfast presence right there, it just stops so much of the engage coming through. And I just feel like it's not the type of comp that CFO actually run well. I'll just say that. CFO are very good at running 4-1 comps. They're good at stalling out. But in terms of coordination, they're actually one of the more lackluster teams out of the J-Team trifecta. So we'll see if the 3 weeks we haven't seen, the 2 weeks we haven't seen them in have improved their synergy. Or else, I'm handing this one to J-Team.
Okay, well, because J-Team in this series, like, I would have said the complete opposite with what I've seen so far. That J-Team are the team that need to show up and show us something.
True.
CFO are the ones I'm trusting right now because of the solo lane difference we've seen, the jungle difference as well. I mean, it's just been a bit of a riffy-diffy, to be quite honest, here in the series. CFO 2-0. It's match point through to the semifinals in the PCS 2022 Spring Playoffs. And as we get a bit of an invade to start off here, Uniboy just getting zoned out. Koala with the deep ward. Ramus says okay. And we're seeing, again, a very different draft coming through. So, Clement, if you're Gemini, at least in the early phase, how do you set up these lanes when they have such different conditions from what we've seen in previous games?
So I think this is going to be a top focus game from Gemini. Okay. In the mid lane, Mission, he might die a couple times, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it honestly matters that much. In the bot lane, you're not expected to win unless you get some crazy level 1 cheese. I would be very surprised if they get a level 1 or level 2 all-in from CFO's side. J-Team are very well aware of that. So for me, that really just leaves top lane by elimination. You want to make sure that Kongre can't gank this lane early. That rest, we have seen him do this, can actually snowball against a Jace if he finds an early lead.
He does put himself into the brush. Nice little trade here, but look at the return from Driver. Rest now at half HP, but it is fleet footwork versus phase rush, so his top lane already bruised up to be quite nice. Gemini is doing a topside start. The same here for Kongre. All lanes lead towards the bottom side. Clement, we didn't talk too much about Shun here on this Kai'Sa. This was a bit of a pick out of left field, considering that we had things like Jinx available. We had the Aphelios as well. Shun wanting something that can play with the close range we talked about.
Yeah, this is a very interesting pick. We have seen Kai'Sa being used as a semi-counter to Xayah. It does lose the lane in terms of the push, but its strength is in the fact that once you hit that level 6, you can use Killer Instincts to completely sidestep the Blade Caller. It's very easy to do. You also have to speed up with your E. So we have seen this being used as a level 6 kill lane, but it's pretty difficult to maneuver early on. I feel like you give a lot of freedom over to the Xayah lane to do whatever they want in the early game. Now, of course, the first 2 levels, again, you're running Halla Blades and you have your passive, so the first 2 levels are somewhat okay for the Kai'Sa, but it does get rougher down the line.
Do you remember the Beyond Gaming series, or not series, but game, earlier in the split, where Wako played the Kai'Sa? It was the hybrid build coming through. And, you know, we've seen a lot of that throughout competitive play, and feels like it is the best build with 3 upgrades. And the damage in the late game is also a bit insane. So, kind of excited to watch Shun's build path here in this game and see how he goes. Considering that CFO are on match point and such a big deal, is Mission going to spot out Kongre. Good little ward here off on the side. Kongre going to be running into Gemini, though. Before we can talk about the late game, we have to talk about the early trades. Gemini going to be backing away from this one, just letting Kongre take Scuttle and being as patient as so.
Yep, I think like Gemini sort of mistimed that. He tried to go in for a Smite Steal. Kongre managed to get that done pretty early on. That's the thing about Poppy. She's very safe as a champion. Even if she gets tagged down, if you don't miscast your W, you should be fine in most instances, and she scales incredibly well compared to more of the assassin-y type of junglers out there. We have seen J-Team actually run with Kongre's Poppy. It was a losing effort against actually CFO, but I feel like it was a very different composition where they were trying to engage with this Poppy. I feel like this game, they don't need to, so Poppy's biggest weakness is down. Ooh.
Oh, walking into a brush. Hang on, there's a bit of a mistake from Koala. He has to flash away, but he's already dead. Matched by Lil V. Good start here from J-Team in the 2v2. Once again, a first blood.
Yeah, that was... I'm not sure why you would face check in that manner if you're just gonna die right after. Definitely a bit of a mistake from Koala, and it's interesting to see Koala actually play 3 games of Nautilus right off the bat. I in no ways think that this is Koala's best champion. I feel like he's actually better on the Tahm Kench. But this is what they've decided for, and as we said, this lane typically gets very rough before it gets better. We're seeing Lil V already with the kill, Serrated Dirt. This is actually incredibly hard to deal with. It's very accelerated on this first back, so the bot lane's going to get a lot worse, and hopefully Mission can have a say on it.
As Koala Hex flashes over the wall, look at this. Mission into Uniboy. It won't matter as Enzo's now matching, but Koala trying to bring a bad play into a good one, and as we see a 2v2 through mid, we also know that Kongre is nearby, so nothing else is going to happen. Just an attempt to force Uniboy out. And, you know, Clement here in this early game, talking a little bit more about the bottom lane, things are definitely going to get worse with Lil V now having a Serrated Dirk. The poke here on this Xayah, you can already see starting to affect Shun, and Kongre wanting to build around the strength of their bottom lane and get the ball rolling once again.
Yeah, I feel like CFO, they don't really come online until they're level 6 in the bot side. They need that killer instinct to make plays, get past the Featherstorm, Blade Caller, and actually have a wombo combo to play through. So right now, J-Team gets to do whatever they want. The most important thing for them, I think, is keeping ahead or steady in lane. And unfortunately, their top lane, once again, is getting bullied out. That CS difference starting to stack. I
mean, it's Mission, again, who's had a push in mid, goes to the top side, and Rest and Mission are their own little game right now. A 10 CS lead with Serrated Dirk, a big deal. JT, in the meantime, this is the trade-off, though. At the very least, getting the push in towards mid as a response. and getting this first dragon on the board. It is a good start to this game number 3 for the team that desperately needs a good start. That it feels like each and every early game has been kind of either abysmal or slow, Clement.
It definitely has been, and we have to pay close attention to Driver in this lane. He is very much in kill range. Rest does not have the collateral damage, but he does have Mission there, and this top lane matchup, we've seen a couple times in the PCS already. It does tend to be a very zero-sum game. Like, if one side gets a lead, they just start to walk up onto you and start pummeling you down, especially when you consider the builds here. Usually, both sides will have sustain, and the damage is overwhelming. Ooh.
They're diving this. Yeah, they're diving onto Koala. He's taken up against wall, but the charge from Kongyue, absolutely beautiful with the flash forward onto Lil V. Shun with the trade. Gorgeous to see as Driver now all leaning on top of Gemini. Gets the smite down to heal up, but in a bit of trouble. Gemini flashes over the wall. The Driver wants to be the passenger for this ride, but it's a close call at the very least. Nicely done from the top laner who's losing out, but unfortunately he's used quite a lot of mana to try and make sure Gemini doesn't kill it.
Oh, bot lane ends up a bit of a disaster for J-Team, honestly. They needed to secure that kill cleanly, but they traded the AD carry back, while also trading negatively in summoners on that position. So we'll watch this again, but I think what happened is Lil V actually over-tanked this one. It definitely should have allowed the supports to tank it first. So we'll see Enzo takes 2 shots right here, but then it swaps over to Lil V. He takes 2 tower shots and the Q and falls down. Very unfortunate right there on the timing. Anyone else, and he would have stayed alive.
Rough that it trades off as we go to the top side, at least for Enzo now, getting involved with Rest. He's out with the collateral damage. He burnt the flash, but here's Kongyue! The flash train, dude. I love it. J-Team's jungler getting busy, but now Gemini wants revenge. Ultimate comes through. He still roots him down, but the hero's entrance is perfectly timed from Mission. A little root down with the flash shield of Turan will keep him steadfast, and Kongyue ends in a shutdown. They use a lot, but CFO got what they came for.
Yeah, that was a really nonchalant play coming in from Rez. He actually walks back directly into the Poppy and says, you know what, I might die here, but I got the play that I wanted to get. So, J-Team sending multiple members top lane. They do catch out Rez. Unfortunately, Driver doesn't have the mana to really finish him off at range. Rez actually walks in onto this one just to keep everyone there. To be honest, probably unneeded. It was a kind of your rest BM play there, and a very good timing on Mission there to actually get the grand entrance down before Gemini gets knocked away.
I mean, again, Mission, great play, and, you know, kind of what you expect out of this series. Nice that J-Team were trying to build tempo again, though. Like, Kongyue gets to the top side and finishes off the kill, trying to make something happen here, and gold is still even to their credit. You know, J-Team still have a lot going for them in this game plan that you talked about as root under turret. Lil V has to ulti, but look, you talked about the interaction. Shun helping out with the turret shot as well. Lil V's dead. That ulti, gorgeous. The killer instinct, you can see it in his eyes. Enzo's up next on the menu, boys, as Shun follows through. Double kill close to. Koala flashes because it looks like a bit of shielding helped out. But CFO always want to take the skill trades.
Lil V has just been so unlucky this entire series. I feel like Koala has just had Lil V's number throughout every single game. Every single game he's been able to just find a point-blank dredge line right in front of Lil V. What? Beautiful manipulation of the hitbox right there. Scrapes Lil V, killer instinct into the back. It doesn't dodge out on the full blade collar, but enough to avoid the root, and Shun still has the firepower to chase down. Koala plays this a little bit too smart, actually misses out on the E, but he flashes in to clean it up.
Worth it, dude. He's the carry. Remember game 2? Koala needs kills, dude. He needs kills. That's right, Club, but he's the drop bear. And, you know, Shun's already got a couple anyway. It's a 2-0 Kai'Sa with Manamune picked up, and J-Team, even after it's gone wrong a couple of times, they want to try this one again. Solarflare used. Cleanse now to get the movement speed. Koala needs to help out on this one as Kongyue is denied. Enzo with the Zenith Blade, a bit short range. J-Team have committed 4 members down here now with Uniboy over the wall. You can see it's just for the Herald play, so getting Lil V a bit more of that space, while Gemini is still taking down the purple Shelly.
So all in all, I feel like this trade's actually not bad for J-Team. Even though there is a Herald being taken, if you look at their top lane tower, that was most likely going to go down anyway. Bot lane, they can't trade effectively against it. And mid lane, I think Uniboy should be getting to the point where he can start to control the wave with his first Mythic. So I think this trade overall does favor J-Team. What they were going to lose, they were going to lose anyway. So they get a little bit more out of it. They also snowball this into a second Drake and give themselves a potential win strategy out of that second Drake as well. Now the question, I think, is how well can CFO actually coordinate? Because we are past the laning phase. This is when you're going to see some crazy combos come out with the Death Charge and Gemini flashing in for an anchor point for the heroic entrance. There's a lot of different ways they can sync together their abilities, but we haven't really seen CFO do this in the past. When CFO tried to play a Wombo comp against J-Team, it fell flat on its face, and we all remember how that game went with the Malphite. So we'll see if CFO can actually pull this style off. What?
Well, they've already started that dredge line again. I don't know, Clement. The blades fly once again. Mission with a great ulti. Enso just missing out, but still taunted down. Herald's going to come through as Kongyue now spotted. Teleport burn from Driver. They want to stop this one. CFO made a bit hypey here on the Herald play. It's smited down. It's negated. So nice from J-Team to hold the line.
All right, I overreacted. I think J-Team actually defended that well. But how the hell does Koala get every single Q onto Little V? That's just not supposed to happen.
The whole series, Clement. The whole series, the Caitlyn game, like the last Xayah game as well. Lil B walks into it. I don't know if it's so amazing for Koala or if Lil B's like a heat-seeking missile. Or at least he's been the target all along.
Like, Koala's not doing anything that's particularly subtle. Like, he's actually just walking across the minion wave in plain view to find the Q. So, to be fair, he's had a lot of very good dredge lines, but you have to put some blame there on Lil V. Now it's Rest's turn to see if he can actually clear this wave and prevent the dive. I think he's just dead.
I think he is. Against the wall, though, he doesn't get stunned up, and he's away. Flashes, Clement. The heroic charge doesn't get the stun, and Kongyue makes it so that Rest is able to escape. Now for bottom side, CFO might not have the Herald anymore, but this turret is going down with turret plating going over to Mission.
I didn't know that was even possible, that you could still flash out even though the stun lands. Yeah, really remarkable that he's able to get that one to go. Gets out scot-free, and that's a free tower in the bot lane. So CFO, even though they don't find the combo, they take all the objectives.
It's kind of a trend in this series, isn't it? Trend in this series that no matter how hard J-Team try, CFO's response is either equal to or greater than. And, you know, I feel like J-Team need to get their dues in this game. It's a much better early game, but CFO, now with almost a 3k gold lead, it's dive after dive bot that Shun still didn't die from. Clement, it's a 2-0 Kai'Sa, and he was dove 3 different times. Like, I'm not sure how this game has ended up this way when J-Team had a pretty clear-cut gameplay.
Yeah, just very unfortunate from Lil V. I think both of his deaths were completely preventable. Like, they should not have happened in a normal scenario. So there's definitely a little bit of blame there to go around. And now CFO, with a secure bot lane, is going to start just punishing Driver again and again.
It's a Hex Tech play. What did Jace do? He enabled his enemies to get behind him. Well, CFO with another, but now Rest caught on out. The weak side, apparently, is J-Team to get a response. It's great, but what else can they achieve here, Clement? It feels like J-Team need more and more rather than just trading.
Yeah, they need to get ahead of the situation at some point. And I think right now, a lot of their tools have just kind of fallen off. They don't have the poke angle anymore from the side of Little V and from Driver. Ooh.
Okay, and so Like's also walking into hook. Shun took a bit of damage there, so credit to Lil V and Enso for forcing out the 80 carry. Mission's there on the wing. I'm scared of this replay because I feel like Mission's going to gank soon.
I have the same idea here. I think we all know what's going to happen here. He just gets caught out by overwhelming amounts of crowd control. But I want to know what's happening live. Because last time we checked, Mission just walked right into lane and, okay, nothing happened.
Okay, close call. It's always a close call. It's same in LPL, right? We go into a replay, we go, hang on a minute, dude. We're about to Baron part 2. I feel like the Eastern regions can't really go into replays. PCS, PCS, and LPL. Replays sometimes should just be taken out.
I feel like they're 10-second max replays. Like, you can't
Yeah.
go into contextual replays. I love that the production gives casters time to go into that, but sometimes what's happening on screen is definitely a little bit more important. Coming back into this game, talking about J-Team's win conditions, I think they have to play a kiting game. Their siege doesn't really have enough damage, and they're in massive amounts of danger by Koala, who still has his flash there, so it should be very easy to chain up into a heroic entrance. What I think they need to do is they need to keep a very long amount of safe distance, and also have Kongrye just to make sure that they can cut everyone off right here. This time I think they just out-rotated CFO, honestly, on this play.
Yep.
The objective fights is where I feel like they're gonna have the most trouble, because that's the sort of fight where CFO have the most chance to section them off, have Kaisa going one way, and Mission keeping people on the other side, and Gemini just finishing off targets. So the objective fights for me are going to be the most difficult parts of the game from J-Team from this point onward.
Especially when you're just talking about Mission. I mean, he's got his own Hourglass. That's a 2-item Galio here, who is ahead of Uniboy in both CS and both Gold in this game. He was also able to pick up a turret down on the bottom side while full plating was available. So Mission is not only level 12, but in a great position yet again, despite the champion's style change. We talked about this not really being some of the best of Mission's champion pool, but so far in this Galio, he's had a pretty great performance. I think a great performance in the series is fair to say. He's had a bit of a mid-diff. So again, you talk about around the objectives, even around turrets, Clement. Mission with his ulti available off onto the wing pushing side lanes is always a threat.
This time around, CFO aren't trying to contest into the blind vision range right here. They're just waiting until J-Team potentially splits up, but I'm not really sure why J-Team is full chasing right here. I think their chances of completing this chase are actually fairly narrow. They're probably just shooing away CFO so they can't clear the wave as soon as possible.
Makes sense. Wave pushing the top side from Mission just before they rotated back around towards mid. So Driver's going to have to catch that one. And, we're moving into a mid-game, Clement, where, you talked about how CFO's comp comes together. We've already idolized that and around objectives. You did also mention that J-Team, the late game is still, is still optimal, right? Even with Jace, Xayah, like, we have a lot of champions with great damage outputs and not any real frontline tanks. So walk me through a little bit what J-Team have to do in this mid-game and how they get to that advantage that we wanted to see.
I will say I think J-Team actually didn't catch their early game spikes for either the Jace or the Xayah in lane to allow them to feel as impactful in the late game. We have seen games where, Jace gets a good early game, Xayah gets a good early game, and they just get free scaling into late. This, unfortunately, is not one of those games, so I do feel like because of the damage profile difference, they will have a very shaky mid game where CFO will massively out damage them, and they can also reach the backline a little bit easier. So what I'm really looking to prevent, to kind of steady the ship from J-Team, has to come from Kongrye. I think he has to have some of the best stuns and backline guarding that we have ever seen him pull off in order to get a successful win.
It's hard, right? He's going to pop the Predator, though, and maybe this is the way he does it. Maybe it's a phase rush, excuse me. It's Mission's own. Bursted out. The damage from rest of Mission cannot be trifled with. His teleport up to the top side after the nick of battle. And a little bit of a defensive play from J-Team while they lose yet another turret. So, Clement, I guess we can kind of see the movement speed coming through from J-Team's jungler and how we can find that position you're talking about.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. He can't engage in this sort of team composition for sure, but he has tremendous potential, I think, especially by catching the killer instincts from Shun. If he does that, he would get the main damage dealer off of CFO, and they could instantly kill him. So that has to be something that we watch a lot of the times, and frankly, I think Shun is not going to join most of these combos unless he sees that the W is down.
As Gemini spots him over the wall. Shun's damage as well. Worth mentioning the profile. We've got Loon's Echo as a second item. Shun with upgrades. The W upgrade there as well. So every 2 seconds, if he hits a champion, it's coming again. I love watching Kaisers in this meta because when they hit things like 80 carries, Clement, like Oriana's, even the Jaces, it hurts.
It gets
it's noticeable.
Stupid.
Yeah, it does.
We've seen a lot of half HPs from the Kaisa, and this is the
you know what else
we're
is stupid?
talking about.
A 1v1 if Driver walks into this. Mission is coming through as well. Everfrost rolling in. The collateral damage Mission is on the chase. He'll have to run away. That's, yeah, scary. Rest is still big despite being 0-2.
Yeah, that's the problem when you have two sustained AD carries facing up against each other.
Oh, ooh, Koala again. He knows he hits Lil V all the time. As he goes golden, though, he's in a pretty bad position. He's got a bit deep for this one, Clement, and Uniboy's going to be able to pick up the kill. Good little response, and Baron's up and available mid-open for the time being. J-Team posturing aggressively.
That one was kind of crazy from Koala. I'm not sure what he was thinking about that one, to be honest. Like, his top laner and mid laner were not there. I think he's underestimating Little V. Okay, Little V might have messed up a couple times this series, but I think you have to show the man some respect rather than flashing in on Isaiah with ult.
That's true, dude. I mean, again, Little V always walking towards stretch line, so I understand why Koala would do it, especially being 2-0 up. Like, CFO have been by far the better team in this series. You'd be feeling confident right now knowing that this series only takes one more step. It's J-Team who are pressured. And so, in this game, still 3,000 gold lead. CFO still hold the reins. But J-Team towards this next dragon. Clement, in 40 seconds, we're going to have to see if it all comes together because we are getting some pretty strong items here. Driver finally hitting 2. Uniboy almost at 3. They're trying to set up a pick before the objective. Rest has to back away. And we're finally going to see if J-Team can win a fight.
Yeah, for sure here. And I think the way we have to look at J-Team's fight is I don't think they have good terrain pushing potential. So they likely have to get to the objective first, poke out the enemy team, and then have some great defense from Kongyue with the steadfast presence to make sure they can lock down either Gemini or most likely Shun, kill him instantly. That would be the best case scenario for J-Team. But I also like what CFO is doing here. They realize that J-Team's comp is not good at pushing through these fog of war positions, so they're setting up for a trade.
They're going to go on to Shun, but look, he's already done the damage. Flash away from the ult. Koala caught out yet again, though. He's blasted. Shun ulties to the backline. But look at the rest of CFO. They've flanked them. Driver in a bad position, and Shun is already out of there. And now they're getting collapsed on those W's doing damage, and Gemini on the chase. How did CFO find an angle in this fight? There's teleport to get away. Driver's running on the other side. They've got him, but Uniboy, just in the nick of time while Rest is taken down. Driver and now split cam. CFO styling on J-Team yet again. It doesn't matter what window they get. It's CDBC Flying Oyster that are so damn high in this sky.
Once again, Little V gets caught out and does absolutely nothing. He just straight up dies with Flash and Featherstorm. So J-Team instantly lacked the majority of their damage, and even though they were the ones going for the pick, I just feel like they got a little bit complacent. They weren't looking at their AD carry, or their AD carry wasn't looking at where CFO were, and CFO just find a super easy fight out of nowhere. If you kill the AD carry straight off the bat, there's not much J-Team can do after that.
I'm just so surprised because, Clement, you said the short range, the fights have to come together perfectly. That was janky, but it worked. It worked so nicely. And J-Team split apart. Rest picking up 2 kills in that fight. Shun once again showing us how dangerous this build can be. And Mission has just been perfect this series. By far the better mid laner than Uniboy. He's been styling and kind of reminding us why, you know, in the past he's been called one of the best, why he's been one of the most notable mid laners in the region.
PCS Faker.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's Maker, dude. You know, we have, you know, in LPL, we've taken Fofo. People call him Foka. Here, Clement, we call him Maker. All right? And this series, he deserves to be called Maker.
All right. We'll watch this fight again. So J-Team go with a super risky catch. They don't have great engage tool, but here is the critical moment. Little V walks into River, gets ganked by Gemini, and dies before even getting an auto attack. That's the majority of their damage just gone. J-Team cannot fight, and they're in a super bad position getting chased down in 2 places here. You see Driver dying on the bottom side, and Gemini nearly catching out Uniboy on the top side again. I just feel like J-Team, they didn't play towards their objectives. You know, they should have reset the map. You chase off CFO, but still go back to the situation where you have to be on the objectives first, and you don't have to rely on Poppy for engage. It's just not really a good engage tool.
True. I mean, we've seen this game. It's Kongyue's pick as well. Kongyue, I remember Mad Team, and I remember seeing them at Rift Rivals, Clement. And you know, Mad Team was someone who had so much swagger, right? Kongyue's Poppy pick is, I'll pause on that. He's going to be chasing down good Everfrost, but it doesn't slow down Kongyue. The man I was just talking about, unable to follow up, and Mission drags 3 away. Meanwhile, Waves crashing in with the Baron buff at their heel. Rest is destroying in the solo lane. 2 levels up over Driver. He's going into the Jace. Like he just doesn't care. Driver's sitting here. I don't know how confident he should be. I mean, Lil B gets tagged by W, and again, they fly through. Clement, CFO, one step away from getting to the semifinals. And Rest showing us that they mean business.
Little V has done no auto attacks in the last 2 fights. This is getting from bad to worse. CFO just massive snowball, 6k base open. They want to close things.
Semi-finals on the wing in 3-0 fashion. We thought J-Team and CFO would have the best chance of taking us to 5 games. But CFO looked like they hit Challenger only yesterday, and J-Team is still trying to get into plat promos at this point. The gap is massive. And as J-Team are on their final base defense and their final moment of the series, it feels like CFO are laughing at this point. 1 step away from semi-finals. CDBC flying Oyster, the 3rd seed in the PCS Spring Playoffs, have come to play. And honestly, Clement, I feel like I'm going to change my prediction of who's getting into finals based on this.
Yeah, I feel like CFO might be a much stronger opponent against PSG than I initially thought. This is the thing about teams where you know they have great personnel, but low synergy. They can always bring that synergy up. That's the thing. Like, I feel like synergy is much easier to achieve compared to mechanics. And CFO are proving that old point true, you know? Rest, once again, just trying to go for Little V.
Oh, God, run. Oh, everything hurts to watch. Little V has double summoners, though, guys. It's okay.
He's using him as a damage test.
Yeah. He's kind of playing around with his food. You know, I was watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Clement. You know, Predator. The old school Predator from the 70s.
I remember that one.
And, you know, the Predator's playing with them all, picking them apart piece by piece. It's just a game for him. And for Rest, he's playing the best damn game, man. He is the Predator in this one. JT are the pro.
Well, I hope Kongyue gets to say, get to the chopper, as he does swing around that hammer.
Let's go, Clement. Dude,
did he actually save someone?
We need to work together. Oh, man. I missed you so much.
Oh, here we go.
Might be only 3, but they try for the final play. Double knock-up, good. J-Team in their final defense might have something here for Koala with the re-engage and depth touch, but he's by himself.
Beautiful.
3 versus 5. J-Team survive for now.
And that was a play I was talking about. We saw Kongyue just go in and put the W up. Once the steadfast presence was there, Shun does not get to use Killer Instinct. He has to stay on the periphery, and they just get to kill Graves for free. So finally some good revenge right there. I think J-Team are not going to go down without a fight.
Well, I'm glad, because I was worried at seeing this close out to 3-0 at the very least. The game will continue for now. Now, we've got Dragon Soul for J-Team, but they have to walk towards this. Jungle for Gemini. Needs to find himself an angle. Lil V, wait, what?
Really?
Wait! Lil V has to flash away missions here. Okay, now he's only got 1 summoner left. He's tagged by the W. Missions all in there, might get solved, but the problem is Shun's on his way in the backside. Lil V this series, the biggest question mark here, as CFO making an exclamation mark. Their point has been made as Driver's onto the backside. Doesn't want this to end for now, but Rest still lives. And that's who they'll be scared of the most. Driver on top of Koala, but here's Graves again, locked down. It might not matter as Mission wants to end it here. Mr. Clement Chu, the PCS, told me this was being a 5-game series, but CFO came in today and said, this is our semi-final berth. J-Team will not take it away.
Oh boy, we were coming into this series thinking that this might be the coronation of Shun into the elite tier of ADCs in the PCS. What I didn't expect to see is Lil V actually just vacating his spot. Like, he honestly was pretty baffling. I feel like he was very tilted when it came down to game 3, and it did make things significantly easier for CFO. You know, that should have been a Hextech Soul into a base defense where they already had a winning team fight further on with the use of the Poppy W, but none of that actually happened. They just overextended massively right into Gemini's waiting arms, and CFO said, okay, that was your flash. We're gonna end the game right here, right now.
I mean, we got an hour and a half of game time just about. Hardly anything played on Summoner's Rift. CFO making short work of J-Team, and, you know, it's disappointing considering I thought J-Team would be able to close this out. 3-2 is what I put down after the end of the regular season. But CFO now changing everything. PSG and DCG would be looking at this series thinking, hell, CFO have got some fire under their wings because they are ramped up. And now they're in the semifinals. PSG, DCG have to get through each other. But that is a completely different story when they get to CFO.
Yeah, this CFO is looking very damn scary right now.
Yeah.
I think their bot lane mechanically is on point. We had huge questions of how Koala would form up because he's been the most inconsistent member out of the squad. But I think in this series he did very well. Those hooks were on point. It seemed like CFO knew that if they gave him enough confidence on the Nautilus, they would repay him with those plays. And we have to say that definitely did happen. And also we saw Mission actually play very well, even against Uniboy. You know, sometimes Mission does go into that downward spiral where if he's ganked early on as a control mage, he can just look he just can kind of disappear in team fights. And later on, we have seen that at Worlds. We have seen that in this series. That didn't happen for Mission either. He won the lanes against the toughest mid jungle from J-Team and then still carried the rest of the game. So I feel like all of our questions from CFO have been just alleviated. As for J-Team, we waited 3 weeks for this squad to show up in playoffs, and they didn't show up at all.
They didn't. I don't even think they hear Clement. Like Lil V, for example, that final game. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Lil V throughout this series, that Hexgate usage. I mean, just everything, every time getting hooked in. Koala. No wonder he kept picking Nautilus. He's like, well, Lil V likes it. He respects me. He wants me to hook him. I don't know, Clement. It's really rough to watch because, like, these are some of the players, like people like Kongyue, Uniboy. We didn't talk about it all. Kongyue, very few and far between. I feel like Uniboy wasn't even present in that series, and Uniboy's been a standout player towards the second half of the split.
I just want to say, throughout this entire series, I think we had one back and forth team fight. That was it.
Yeah.
Like, there were no close team fights in this series whatsoever. There was ones where, you know, CFO lost a member and they looked like they were pushing too far, but there weren't ones where J-Team looked like they could actually hold their ground and take a sustained 5v5. I think that's the most worrying trend towards me if I look at J-Team's upcoming games in the lower bracket, because it means they're locked into Uniboy and Kongyue. If Uniboy and Kongyue do not perform, they have nowhere else to turn to.
And I was going to say that, like, you know, from an outsider's perspective, and I'm sure a lot of viewers coming in, they'll be like, oh, well, PCS again is like a 2-3 team league. J-Team were very promising at the end of the split, and that needs to be reiterated. This is why they're second seed. They started in this second round because they're higher seed than CFO. CFO had to play a tiebreaker match against DCG to get the third seed. So, like, it's just been a different beast. And I feel like we can kind of talk a little bit about experience here, Clement. Like, Mission Gemini and Rest, you know, in best of 5 format. Even the coaching staff of CWC Flying Oyster, if you want, had a much better read coming into this one. The first 2 games especially, with much more simplistic and easier to run drafts for this series against J-Team.
No, I think, you know, we might be looking things... Game 1 draft for sure, that was 100% draft win. Game 2, I actually think J-Team had the draft win. And Game 3, I actually favor J-Team's draft as well. So I don't think the coaching staff did too poorly past the other 2 games. But I would say, you know, I know Nash and I know the guys that are coaching J-Team, they are very young. And there are a lot of aspects, I think, that goes into a best of 5 that they might not be aware of. One is mentality. I feel like if you just let Driver play 3 games of not seeing a jungler, he's gonna tilt off the face of the earth. I think if you are changing gears massively and you are going for hyper carry, then you need to make sure that Little V is actually up to the task mechanically. And I think players show a huge range of mechanical capability depending on the day they're playing. A lot of times, if a player is, you know, mechanically not showing up, then maybe you have to pivot your strategy. So I think in Game 3, I would have taken things very differently. I would have gone for red side. I would have said, you know what? We put Rest. I think he has an inflated ego right now. He's probably going to be very easy to gank, and he's probably going to be thinking about emotes more than flashing. So let's just give Driver a good matchup, try to pummel him in the top side, and play through that lane. That would be my take on it. Overall, Game 2, Game 3 draft, were absolutely fine. It was just the fact that their execution was sorely lacking. Their execution was really just, I think, especially from the bot lane, was a little bit inexcusable, and that really meant that they weren't able to hit their power spikes when they should have been able to.
As, you know, bot gave a window here for this guy to carry. MVP here from Shun. A lot of damage, but more importantly, I mean, Shun surviving the dives, Clement. The outplay here from Koala, the 2v2, has been stunning this series, and I expected Atlan to be starting in playoffs, but so far it's been Shun against MFT, now against J-Team in their second 3-0. CWC Flying Oyster, their 80 carry is a star, and this star rose so high in the series.
I gotta say, Shun right now is looking like the second best 80 carry behind Unified. If you think about the totem pool right here, Kriskata, I actually think Shun has better mechanics from what I've seen so far. And then there really isn't an 80 carry that comes terribly close to what Shun and Koala have been able to show in lane. So I'm super happy that we have a breakout performance from Shun. And, you know, with the loss of Doggo, everyone was kind of thinking about what's the next talent. I feel like Shun is going to fit that bill nicely.
Which is nice to see. Again, good decision from CDBC Flying Oyster. Once again, running with what you'd call their substitute 80 carries. He only played 6 games in the regular season. But Shun's been really impressive. And Clement, throughout this this whole series, I mean, he's just been so solid. Ladies and gentlemen, though, we are going to take a break, I've been told. And then when we come back, it's interview time here with CDBC Flying Oyster and see what the thoughts were through that 3-0 series.